Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of Not Too Comic Book. This being a show where I talk about TV shows that are adaptations of comic books. For today's episode, I'm going to talk about the latest episode of The Flash, a great episode as we come into the Armageddon finale. A lot of really interesting things. Okay, so first and foremost, we are immediately picking up after the events of the last episode, and Barry rushes over to see Joe, because it's like, he's like, yeah, he thought he lost Joe, and it's like, oh, I'm fine, like, especially when everyone else is like, what? It's been actually a boring day, actually, like, once again, like, the events of Armageddon never happened, so it's just been boring couple days for everyone. They're like, yeah, it's just been a regular, like, so, once again, it's that, like, time thing of just like, yeah, none of that happened, but Barry remembers everything that happened, so, I think that's quite fascinating. So when the time comes, though, Barry and Joe are sitting down and talking. It's like, right, like, he feels like for the first time, he's like, I can breathe again now that I know that you're okay, that you're all right. He's like, well, I'm here now, Barry. I'm not going anywhere. And seems like he's not the only one. I love these, like, Barry, why is there a super villain in my living room? And then Damian's like, thank you, but I don't know why I'm here either. But he figures like, right, it's going to be a little while before the timeline solidifies. And as long as I'm here, Nora's not going to be here. So, I just got to wait my time out. But, for Barry, it's like, right, and it's like, Damian's like, no. Like, he's trying to not to, like, think too much of it. Because he's like, I'm not some hero. That's never been my thing. At the very end of the day, all I'm doing is saving my child. Obviously, as a father, like, that's the most important thing. And obviously, Joe can connect to that as a father as well. So, obviously, everyone's kind of, relaxing about, like, wow. I love that it's like, oh, so I guess they were married. I didn't realize they were married, but apparently Frost and Chilblain were married. I think that's what they were saying. He's like, yeah. And I love the whole Allegra and Chester thing of like, oh, what about us? It's like, no, you guys seem like you're about the same. Like, he's like, well, to be fair, I wasn't part of the team. And that's the point I was making last episode, too. It's like, he wasn't a part of the team, so once again, that's what I think is so interesting about Part 4, because it is like a regular Flash episode, but none of that, like, Team Flash stuff is necessarily going to, who knows? It was a different timeline, so things could work out for the better in this timeline between Chester and Allegra. It wouldn't take that long for things to kind of happen between them. It could be like, maybe things will happen sooner, but Barry doesn't have the future to put it in perspective of like, oh, what they're going to have. And plus, you bringing that up would probably lead to a situation of, like, it not happening, so you might not want to jinx it. So I think it works out for the better. But I love that, Eobard shows up at the police precinct. I am surprised he didn't straight up kill her. He attacked the cops, and I was like, oh, you're not killing them? Why is that? So he's trying to draw Barry out, but got another hero instead, and it's Mia, which I love that she shows up, and I'm like, because I was like, right, because I forgot Mia is a part of this too, because she's in the trailer, she's in the promotional material, but it didn't even cross my mind. I was like, right, and it's kind of that similar thing where it's just like I talked about before, like the Arrowverse, you're able to play with certain things, kind of give certain conclusions that maybe you weren't able before. Like, sadly, we're not getting the Green Arrow and Canary series, but we're kind of building this off of that, like what we got in the, I don't think it was in the series finale. It might have been, but I think it was in episode 9 when William got taken. So we're building off of that, and that's why she's here, because she found temporal energy, and so she believes, like, if anyone's responsible, it's Eobard. And Eobard's like, oh, meet the great Green Arrow, but I don't have time for this. Which, interestingly enough, if you notice, Mia's kind of doing something with her voice. I was like, oh, kind of doing a little bit of an Oliver, like, with your voice. But luckily, Barry shows up. But he's like, oh, I wanted you here. I'm not here to kill or hurt anybody. In fact, I'm here because I want a public audience when I ask you to save my life. You're like, are you serious? Mister, I've tried to destroy you. I've killed people important to you. I tried to steal your life. But, save me, Barry Allen. I need you. Save me, Barry Allen. You're my only hope. It's kind of crazy. And now they're in this conundrum of, well, what do we do? Because it turns, like I said, Mia's here looking for William because she's actually been looking for him for 2 years. So, like, it's been once again, it's just that thing of, like, right, the events of Green Arrow and the Canaries, like, technically is happening and stuff. Because I'm assuming, and whether they'll really get into the nitty gritty of this, like outside of, what would have been that show, but we'll probably get little peeks into it. We know that Dinah ended up in the future. So that was a mystery we never got solved that would have been tapped on. So I'm assuming there's some correlation there of why she's in the future, and like why William was taken and why there was temporal energy that led her to Eobard, but maybe there's other elements at play there. But now the question is, cool, we have to save Eobard's life, which now it's like, right, everyone's got to be here because we have to make this decision together as a team, which Mia's super against it because she's even like, nah, I'm willing to kill someone if it's for my, my brother. And I'm like, oh, I was like, ooh, a lot like your dad in that regard, huh? But even Iris is like, you don't want to go down that route. I mean, it's like literally killing people like took its toll on Oliver. Like it basically ruined his life in many different regards. Like, so it's like Oliver wouldn't want you to suffer through what he went through, but it seems like Mia hasn't gone down that route yet of becoming, that. And even Iris is like, right, do you want to, you could go to your mom for help, but she's like, I don't want to see mom. Cause I guess for her, it's just like, she doesn't want her mom to see her the way she is now, because it's like, right, like I'd be kind of a disappointment to mom, so I don't want Felicity to see me like this. But even her being like, you're saying that killing would ruin my life, saving Thawne might ruin yours, because it's like, right, the guy's like a plague in your life. He keeps coming back over and over and over again, and he does. I mean, hell, she even brings it up. The man killed your dad and then created an alternate timeline. Well, where he killed your dad, but also he married you. How sick and twisted is that? Like I said, that's some next level, like, psychotic stuff of, like, not only going to take Barry's life, you're going to marry his wife. That's sick. That's ultra sick. But it's because everything he did, once again, he didn't love Iris. He just did it. He's like, oh, I'm going to take your friends. I'm going to take your family. They mean nothing to me, but because they mean everything to you, I just want to hurt you. And so, even Caitlin, because, like, I love that, like, Eobard tried to appease her because he thought if he could appease anyone, I mean, like, everyone on team, like, OG Team Flash is going to hate your guts because they remember you manipulative person pretending to be their friend while doing all this terrible stuff. Cisco remembers a timeline where you, like, phased through his chest. Also, let's not forget, hey, you killed my dad. No, you killed my mom, and my dad spent years in prison because of you. But, like, Caitlin's all, like, he's like, oh, like, but you're a doctor, like, you'll never save life. She's like, right, I made an oath to do no harm, but, like, I'm not gonna kill you. I'm just gonna let time do its thing. It's like, no, like, no matter how, all the speed in the world couldn't save you from your fate. You've been outrunning your fate for a long time, and now, funny enough, it's finally catching up with you, because he's trying to reference, like, oh, the fact is she hasn't moved on. It's like 8 years, you never moved on. The fact is, after your idiot of a fiance, and you're still here to helping Team Flash. And she's like, I'm here because they're not just my friends. They're my family. And she's like, the reason why I'm also not going to help you, because in the past, what have I been doing the past 8 years? Hating you. And that's so interesting because the show's never really tapped onto it. But of course, it's like, if it wasn't for her, she wouldn't have lost time with Ronnie. Like, everything fell apart because of him. You started all this. You're the reason why the particle accelerator went off way sooner than it was supposed to, because you were trying to get back, Eobard's whole thing. So I find that so fascinating because they've never really, to my recollection, they never really leaned into how much Caitlin hates him. And it's like, everyone on that team has every right to hate him. Barry has the right to hate, but it's also like, right, he came to terms a long time ago with, like, had to come to terms a long time ago with losing his mom, his dad. Granted, that was Zoom, but still, it's like the time he lost with his dad because of Eobard. He ended up having to, he lost so much in that regard, so Caitlin made her decision to, like, no, we're going to let you die. You deserve to die. And then Barry comes and talks to her. He's like, finally asks the questions like, why do you hate me so much? And honestly, I'm curious how people are going to feel about it. But like I said, I know his reasonings are, like, I think it's almost like a Joker thing where it's like, Joker's background is, like, super inconsistent. It's whatever you want to make it to be, because it's like, oh, how can you believe anything that comes out his mouth? But Eobard, like I said, one storyline I remember hearing years ago is just that he heard, like, oh, I'm going to become destiny determined that I was going to become Barry Allen's rival. He did like admire the Flash to some extent, and it turns out that's what this is all about. For him, it's like, I finally got some speed, and it was my moment to shine. He's like, we're going to meet 2 centuries from now, but all of a sudden you showed up and you dazzled everyone, because you were dazzling and you captivated the crowd, and I was supposed to be the hero that day, but you took away the one most important moment in my life. And so from that moment on, I decided I need to be faster than you. And you're like, and even Barry's like, you're a sociopath. Only a sociopath would look at that moment and let it define him. I'm like, wow, that's crazy. You could have done all this killing, all this destruction because Barry showed you up. It's like, dude, because it's such a petty, insignificant reason to be the supervillain that you are. But I love that it is something so petty. I don't know if that's like one of those storylines from the comics of like one of the reasons why he became the Reverse Flash. But it's like, oh, if I can't beat, like, oh, I admired you, so now I'm dead set on beating you, being better than you, and, you know, once again, taking your life because, you know, I'm gonna hurt you. And even Barry's like, if we do this, will you stop? And he's like, no, like, if you do save me, I'm just gonna do what I was gonna do before. I'm gonna go back to my plans of finding a way to kill you. And you're like, you're not selling, like, you could at least lie, but he's like, no, I'm not going to lie to you, because at the end of the day, he's like, you're going to save me regardless because you're the hero. You always do the right thing, Barry Allen, so I don't have to worry about it. So I'm going to be honest with you. I'm going to still come after you. I'm going to still try and kill you and ruin your life. But the thing is, Caitlin, Barry, and Iris all side with the, he needs to go. I'm curious where Cecile would have landed in that spot, because we know Chester and Allegra are like, yeah, we don't have the history with Thawne because we're the new kids, but the fact is, like, we're Team Flash. We don't just like let someone die. We don't like, because yeah, like, letting him die is basically the same thing as killing him ourselves, because we're not even doing anything, coming up with a way to save him. But Joe is super upset with like Iris and Barry for it's like, you know, Barry, even Joe's like, you don't think I want him dead? But the fact of the matter is, you guys are heroes. It isn't just a name or in a suit. It's in the choices you make. And if you make this choice, it will, like, you won't have to worry about Thawne coming back to destroy your family. This will destroy you because, you know, that guilt of doing this, like, knowing you could have done something, especially because Barry did come up with a way to save him, because it's like, right, we could strip him of his speed like Jefferson Pierce almost did to me. I mean, he almost severed my connection, so I mean, especially because he even had Despero being like, oh no, I've been to the future, but the fact is Armageddon was prevented, but you and your nemesis, your rival, like, clashed again. So, Barry Allen, what are you going to do? You know, because he's like, if you have, for the greater good, you have to let Eobard die, because if you don't, like, the fact is, this Armageddon could happen all over again. Like, he could return like he has time and time again. But at the end of the day, Barry decided, like, no, like, Joe was right. We need to find a way to take away his speed. That at the end of the day, it is the right thing to do, because we are heroes, and we'll solely that if we let Eobard die. But Despero is not about to let that happen, so he decides that he's going to take it upon himself to make this happen. One, he takes control of Mia, which, really quickly, I should also note, this is actually kind of interesting, because if I remember correctly, one of, like, the first, like, full-blown Green Arrow and Flash crossovers was when Barry was being controlled, and Oliver had to show up to stop Barry. Because obviously Barry first popped up on Arrow in season 2. Obviously, but was that season 2? I believe it was. Or was it season 1? I'm blanking on it now. Regardless, Barry first popped up on Arrow, but, like, the first, like, with Arrow and the Flash existing, like, that was one of their instances. So, like, it's interesting that the flip side of things was in this episode where the Green Arrow character was being controlled. But I also love it that it's almost befitting that this would be the final part, because Mia popping up, because it's almost like reciprocal, and the fact is that the Flash and Green Arrow are together again to some extent, you know? So I think there's like a, you know, especially like because of Barry and Oliver's bond, it feels feels right. It feels good to see the Flash and Green Arrow on screen together again. You know what I mean? So I thought that was fascinating. That's where I was kind of getting to it. But Mia gets used because she thinks like Thawne needs to die after everything he's done. So there's that situation. And then on top of that, Barry's got to deal with Despero, who's like, right, if you're not going to kill him, this needs to happen, Barry. You've got one final chance. Like, do this to save the future. But Barry realizes, like, you claim to be this, like, resistance leader on your planet, but you're not. You're the tyrant, like, you know, it's like, right, but he believes, like, oh, because Barry's like, the way you're going about this, like, feeling that the only way to do anything is to kill, like, the fact is that but it's like, you weren't the hero of your planet. You were the villain, you know? But it's like, right, like, trying to find another way is what a hero would do, like, not be so quick to try and kill someone, you know? It's like, that the fact is that he believes this to be the only way that, you know, it's like, it's my way or nothing. It's like, you were like that with this whole Armageddon thing, even in this moment. Yes, he has, like, this has become his new home, but it's also like, you're seeking refuge here because you kind of screwed the pooch back home because no one wants you, because you led with an iron fist, and you're still doing it now. So, it's Barry's still trying to stop Despero, but even then it's like they, you know, going toe to toe, it still ends up pretty even, which I love the whole zipping around. I'm just like, dude, I love that they're using that a lot more now, where like Barry is just like exploding like the lightning from him, because he didn't really do that much but it's like when he was holding that car back, he just kind of let it loose and it just sent Despero and the car flying. But it's like stuff like that, especially when he like made the copies of himself and they're all attacking Despero at once. Oh yeah, and someone just like running by and throwing lightning. I'm like, dude, come on, dude, this is so. I love speedster stuff. It's the sickest, especially because recently at the Game Awards, the trailer came out for the Suicide Squad Kill the Justice League, and the villain they showcase is obviously the Justice League is being controlled by Brainiac, but this particular section was about Barry, and just like, oh, that speedster stuff looks so, especially that final shot between him and Boomerang. I'm like, oh, that's so cool, that's so great. Regardless, but aside from that, I love that you know, they're backed into a corner with this whole situation. Well, while that's all happening, Mia like ends up putting down Allegra and Frost using essentially a canary arrow. I was like, oh, that's pretty dope. I was like, was that ever in Oliver's arsenal? I don't remember, but I mean, it's like you're around at least 2 canaries that we're aware of. I mean, that depends on if Zoe still ended up a canary in that timeline. I don't remember if she did. But yeah, like you have a canary arrow and takes them down, and luckily both Iris and Cecile were able to reach her, because it's like, right, you're still in there somewhere despite what Despero's saying, because the fact is, if you wanted to kill us, you could have killed us, but you made it so that you weren't trying to kill us. You're still in there fighting. Like, this isn't who you are, you know. You chose to be a hero, so I know you're still in there. And luckily she was able to fight Despero's control. But when Barry shows up, it's like, right, like, your boy Despero is going full throttle because he's planning on using the flame to basically incinerate the entire city. Because, like, right, if I can't kill Eobard, I'm gonna kill everybody, including Eobard. It's like, is that really? But for him, it's like, right, this is to save the world. It's like, do you have to go to such extreme measures? So Barry had given Chester the PED earlier in the episode, but Chester had been working on something, because it's like, right, the flame can be used, like, you know, if Barry builds up enough speed, he can, like, draw the flame away and using a vacuum. And it's like, well, yeah, but and then Chester pulls out the golden boots. I'm like, wow. Once again, it never crossed my mind to think about the fact is, oh, Barry doesn't have the golden boots. I don't think about it enough. Like, it never crossed my mind the entire show. Like, oh, Barry doesn't have the golden boots. I guess I never paid enough attention to realize, oh, the Flash has gold boots. In retrospect, I'm like, how did I never think about that? I never noticed that. But it's like, yeah, I like that it is a monumentous moment like this that Barry gets them. It's like, oh, they fit perfectly. Kind of also like, there's a storyline reason for you getting them too. So it's like, right. And he's like, puts them to work, and he vacuums up the flame and brings it back down and attacks Despero with it. But in that moment, just like they're doing with Eobard, in that moment, his connection to the flame is severed. He's like, "What? You have no idea what you've done, Flash." You're like, "Huh?" In the attempt to save one villain, he may have birthed another. I mean, to be fair, it's not like the dude was a hero to begin with, but the fact is, he's like, "I'm gonna come back for you." It's like, "Oh, you're about saving the world, but why couldn't you just?" It's like a little hypocritical. It's like, no. You wanted the world to be saved your way because it's like I want to. It's on. Because even Barry had compared him to Thawne. And it's like, yeah. You became the villain because you want to be the hero in your own way, because you're going to justify why you're doing what you're doing, because it's just like Eobard justifying all that he's done when it comes to Barry. You're kind of doing the same thing. So he pops off, but it's like, right, he's still out there. He can always come back at any point in time, but I guess, like, in the process, like I said, stopping one villain, you kind of gave birth to another one, but he was already tiptoeing on its way. Now he's just going to justify, like, his hatred towards you and everyone, so he's gone for now. But Barry comes back and takes away Eobard's speed. And in that moment, it's like, what did you do? It's like, I saved your life. He's like, no, you took away my speed. You took away my life. Because without his speed, he's nothing. Like, his speed has defined him. I mean, he wanted to be a hero because he admired the Flash. So it's like, yeah, his speed, he's always wanted it. He spent so long doing everything to get it back. And it's like, no, with his connection severed, there's no way of getting his powers back. There's no going back. So Argus comes and arrests him. And yeah, I think that's the last we'll be seeing of Eobard for maybe a while. But I mean, you never know. But that's the thing of like, because for him, it's like, how am I supposed to live without my speed? It's like, right, when you saw the world from a certain view, a certain lens, and now it's like, right, it all comes crumbling down now because he doesn't have, like, it's like, how do you go back to living just a normal life locked up? And it's like, there's no escape for you. Even if you escaped, you can't get your speed back. You're just a normal person now. Barry's done the ultimate thing. Like, he's, you try to steal Barry's life. Barry inadvertently, he saved your life by stealing your life, by taking away the one thing that mattered more than you, anything in the world, was your speed. That came first and foremost, and super close second was killing Barry. So, but I thought it was so interesting, like, afterwards, they're celebrating. Even me is like, do you guys typically, like, party out like this? And it's like, no, I think it's still a new thing for them. But it's like, right, we need to, after everything. It's like Armageddon, an alternate timeline. Then Damien Dark shows up, and obviously it's like, oh, I know what you've done. And he's like, oh, go ahead if you want to. But Mia's just like, oh, I need a drink. But Iris does point her in a certain direction. It's stuff related to Berlin, and I'm like, what would that be tied to necessarily? It's something on the William front there, but Iris is like, well, the fact of the matter is, don't be a stranger, like, because she is going to go see her mom, because she's like, right, like, realizing, like, Iris was right, because it's like, right, your mom would be proud of the person that you've become, so would your dad, and so, don't be a stranger, I'm sure Nora and Bart would love to meet you as well, which I'm like, hey, future kind of young justice of its own, I'm sure. I mean, you've also got, like, Clark's son Jordan out there doing his thing. I mean, I guess you could almost, like, you could throw Jennifer into that mix as well on that front, of just kind of like the young superhero kids, So, like, there's an element to that. I would say Stargirl too, but it's like, well, they've already got the Justice Society, so they've got their own squad, but still. I hope this isn't the last time we see Mia, but it probably potentially could be, but it is showing, like, right, her arc and her story is still going on in the Arrowverse. They'll always be able to pull back on it if they ever need to or want to in the future, so I'd love the opportunity to kind of see more of her in the future and just kind of at least get some resolution on that side of things to some extent. Since we're not getting the Green Arrow and Canary spinoff, I'm so bummed that, like, the CW decided to pass on a lot of the like spin-offs, whether it's that, Painkiller, so there's been other ones, but these are the more like DC related ones. There was another project that was DC related that they passed on as well. But it was the Wonder Girl series, if I remember correctly. I don't think it was necessarily going to be in the Arrowverse, but it was something that was like set up to happen, but they passed on them. Regardless, it's just network decisions and stuff like that. It sucks, but I mean, it is what it is. But I love that there's a whole Chester and Allegra thing, and even Frost is like, right, I'm more intuitive than people kind of give me credit for, so like go over there and like tell her how you feel. And they're having their moment, and Barry comes over and they're just like, wait, no, we're just having a... He's like, no, I came here to thank you guys because you guys were able to kind of talk me down, like, because they were like, yeah, sorry, like we just kind of like gave our opinion like that. It's like, no, it's good, like you guys are just as much a part of the team, so I'm glad that you were able to help out, like point us in the right direction, because at the end of the day we are heroes, and we would have lost that if we had let Eobard die. So they're like, cool. And then Chester and Allegra kind of go back to their conversation. You're like, yeah. Hopefully things don't turn out the way it did in that alternate timeline, but we'll see. But other than that, Joe ends up talking to Damian, because he's like, I don't even know why I'm still here. But Joe's like, yeah, but the fact is that, because he claimed himself not to be a hero, but it's like, oh, being a father, it changes you. He's like, I know, for the better, because Damian he became a better person because of his love for his daughter. And, finally being there for her after so long. Because, yeah, he wasn't the best dad in season 4 of Arrow, but, granted, she had already gotten older. She had become a part of all this, and the whole, Legends of Tomorrow season 3 and everything. But still, I thought it was pretty interesting for him, because he was saying like, right, while he's still here in the timeline, Nora isn't. So, especially because the timeline is solidified now. So he's like, right, why am I still here, essentially? And Joe's like, maybe you still have a little something to do. And Damian gives him the time stone, because he's like, right, he's like offering a prayer, because he's like, right, I think you might find yourself in need of this sometime in the future. And then the moment Joe looks back up, he's gone. And Dark finds himself in the middle of like a in-between place, and he sees Nora, and Nora's like, Dad? And she's like, but I thought you were... He's like, Dad? Yeah. She's like, no, what's happening? He's like, I needed to hold on I just needed a little bit more time to see you, That's what he was holding out for. And in that moment, before they could touch, she's restored. So I'm assuming everything went back to the way it was supposed to be in that moment, because she's just like, wait, what's going on? No, Barry, what's going on? And so Joe takes her away to explain everything to her about, it's like, right, he's gone again, right? It's like, right, your dad did what he set out to do, save his daughter, which is really sweet, because I was like, because we know present day, like, because of, was it season 5, like, Damian killed himself permanently in that timeline, so it's like he was back. And that time stone, I'm curious like how that's going to play. I guess because the time stone is what kept him anchored, because he even said like, right, I dragged up, because this was connected to you undoing the timeline, because once again, now Eobard can't make it, like, them doing what they did, attacking time all the ways they did with the time stone, made it so that Eobard couldn't, like, all the variables have been removed from the timeline, so there's no running from his fate anymore. Time is catching up with him, because of the whole Eddie thing. But in that moment, obviously Team Flash gathers, because it's like, right, we've dealt with, this challenge, and we came out even stronger, so, celebrating the victory, and like I said, the conclusion to Armageddon. But I like the little stinger at the end. It's like, and I love the police. Oh, things will finally get back to normal. It's Central City. It's the DC universe. There's never going to be normal. But then we focus on the picture. I'm like, what's going to be different? And in the background, you see Bart and Nora. I'm like, what are you guys up to? Because that was an older picture, because it was Eddie in the picture. So I'm like, what are you guys doing? Like, or did you get stuck in the past at some point in time? Like, why are you, like, so it's like, right, so we are going to get more Bart and Nora. I mean, they went through the trouble of, like, setting them up last season, so it's like, right, we're going to have the kids, I guess, running amok a little bit more, which I'm like, yeah, more Nora! And more time with her and her brother bouncing off of each other. Like, that's going to be potentially wild to see what shenanigans we get up to. So, I was watching this on the CW app, so I don't know when The Flash is coming back, because it's taking a massive break after this. Understandable, like, this it's kind of a pretty big event and everything, so. From what I'm reading online, it seems like it's going to be on March 9th. Apparently on a Wednesday, interestingly enough. So I guess, because I know back in January is when Batwoman and Legends returned, so maybe that plays a role in why it's moving to Wednesdays, interestingly enough. But regardless, I'm excited to see. I have no idea what to expect from the rest of the season, because the season 8 trailer was purely about the Armageddon event. So beyond this, I don't know what to expect. I also don't want to know. So I'll take things in strides, like when they come to find out. I'm interested to see what the rest of the season has in store for us. But really, that's all I want to talk about. Till the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day and goodbye.